I have one of the dreaded Miro boards. I can put it in the chat here, the link in the chat, and hopefully we can start document the requirements here. In the meeting, and there's a Miro board in the link in the chat. If you want to go there, you can start ideally putting the post-it notes, putting your comments in post-it notes under each of the pillars, which I've marked out on the Miro board. I won't share the screen because it gets very confusing when everybody's on the same screen and sharing it. So, Alan, you were talking about back office enhancements. And Alan, you were also talking, if you could put your name on it when you do put one on, that would be really useful. If people want to create their own post-it notes, duplicate one of these and add your own text in for what you think the requirement is. Alan, it seems to me that you have several that we need. I've put two there. Innocent Koya. I saw out of the corner of my eye that you had 4 or 5 very detailed requirements. So hopefully you can add them in here. That's just 2 I'm calling out. If other people would please start adding their requirements, I would be very, very grateful to you. And we can, if we have time here, if we could perhaps spend about 15 minutes doing that, we should have time to actually start to at least discuss some of those requirements and perhaps refine them a little. I see that some people have appeared on the Miro board. I can see E is starting to add requirements. Remember, we're particularly interested in requirements that have been vocalized or identified by adopters, or where there is a gap in the offering to an adopter. And E, I see that you added one, but you didn't put your name on it. And the reason for that is when I don't understand this later, I want to know who to come and ask. I don't know. Can people hear me? I just wasn't rambling on.
Paul, we only heard, can you hear me? Before that, there was some silence.
Yes, there was silence. I just wasn't rambling on. I was watching people filling things in on the board. Sorry. Please, can you make sure you put your name on the requirements. There are two on the left here, ISO 27001 and Hub Portal for Hub Operator. And there's a general one here which says Moja Loop. I don't really know what that means. Kareem, when you say portal for hub operator, there are hub portals. The
So
finance portal brings portals with it.
yeah, I mean, I've like seen earlier in last release that when we download or set up Moja Loop, that portal does not like automatically set up as part of the main product. So there is like finance portal. It was in one release, then in the next one it was not there. And perhaps I may be wrong, but I mean last time when I
I think
saw.
it deploys.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we can discuss it offline also.
Yeah, I think so. I take your point. I think that there's a clarification needed there. Yeah, but I understand where your comment is coming from, and I accept it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, generally the approach, what I've seen is that there are APIs for participant management and all of that. That's standard. But I mean, as Alan has also mentioned, back office enhancement. So what I've seen that in absence of like a standard portal as part of the product, every adoption will continue to use the same APIs to create different type of portals.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. I'm guessing that the requirements that are being listed by Paul means Paul Baker, as I think there's only two Pauls in this community. Moja Tazama integration, who put that in? Please,
So
I
we,
appeal again for people to put names on these so I know who to come and ask for clarification. Greg, I can see you're adding requirements, but can you please put your name on them? Well, I see you've done this on one at least. Yeah, don't worry anyone about it being relevant or not. Please just add them in and we can worry about relevance later. Yeah. Simeon, how much longer have we got for this session?
I think about 15, 14 minutes.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that should work quite nicely. Michael, can I please ask you to expand a little on compliance by reference? Michael, isn't that directly influenced by whatever outcome we get from our input to recommendation 16? If recommendation 16 is adopted as per the draft, compliance by reference will become much more difficult and we won't have any choice about it.
I'm not sure that it will become much more. I mean, one of the things about the draft is that it does contain elements by reference.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's by any means perfect. I think in any case, we will still need to be able to provide links to enable connections to, to direct information that's provided, for instance, by MOSIP.
Mm-hmm.
To be passed about in the via the API, which we can't currently do.
Yes, I agree. To me, that's the best solution by a long way. It's whether we can do it according to regulation.
Well, sorry. In my mind, these are two separate problems. So the first is, do we need to be able to support it, for instance, in jurisdictions where MOSIP is in use, or any other identity management system? And second, will that suffice for cross-border payments, which are subject to FATF recommendation 16?
Mm-hmm.
And it's possible that the answers might be yes and no.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't mean it was useless. I mean, it would mean it's not as useful as it would otherwise be, but it wouldn't mean it was completely useless.
Okay, thank you.
If I could build on that comment briefly, there's some movement now to start looking at the legal entity identifier in certain kinds of use case contexts as an identity strategy, which is somewhat eccentric to the last comment around MOSIP, but it's not unrelated. Glyph has been given the BIS agency to go off and do this work, and Glyph being the body which controls the LEI definition and its adoption. So there may have to be some integration of what's emerging from that space along with our ISO work and along with multi-scheme. So I'm not sure exactly what to do with that, but there seems to be quite a lot of effort going into that now. So the real question is, do we try to take on the different identity paths into one common work stream to make some sense out of all of it, or do we just address them as being different and set them up as independent work streams. I'm not sure I have an opinion about that. Others perhaps might.
Can you hear me,
Well,
Bob?
we have, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So the LAI isn't adopted a lot through Africa at the moment, or it is only by the large banks for large institutions. So there needs to be a lot of effort put into getting people to actually join that and register. I do agree that it's the way of the future, though. It definitely is. It gives you one certain central point to validate them.
Yeah, I mean, we are talking to Glyph about this, and we've undertaken to develop some thinking around this. Personally, I think that LEIs are not the universal answer by any means. We can support Glyph in their mission to extend the reach of the LEIs. We cannot take on, I think, as was originally suggested, any form of registration for LEIs, but we can work with LEI registries to facilitate that process.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I personally think that there is a requirement to work with not just logical entities, but also natural entities, in other words, people. And there's an awful lot of sole traders out there, market traders, etc., who will never be registered for an LEI and it would never be appropriate.
Well,
Yeah, this
agree with that.
discussion
That's
is
a concern. Yeah.
Yeah, this discussion has been had with them, and we've made it very clear that if you're thinking about 7-Eleven adopting yet another long string of digits to define themselves, that's a almost uninteresting conversation for us to have, because they'll either do it or they won't. But
Exactly.
what we're mainly keen about is the 2 billion people that are never going to have an LEI, but that need to be identified in some fashion.
Exactly.
And so we've explained this to them, but that doesn't really change their focus. And it will emerge that one of those 2 billion people interacting with somebody who has an LEI, there has to be some crossover strategy for that, so you can address a payment. We've also pointed out that entering an LEI into a simple mobile phone is a non-starter. It's
never going to happen.
Yeah, that's way too long. Yeah.
So anyway, there's work to do with Glyph. I guess I don't know what to put under this package. I'm not saying that we would love to adopt it and flow it through our work. I'm really actually not saying that. I'm saying the opposite of that almost. But that we understand that there's a force of function behind this, that it might be a bit eccentric to our mission, but it's going to wash over us, and we need to be part of it somehow. And you did cover this, Paul, I recognize. I just wanted to be sure there was a work stream, some thinking or requirements collection thinking around what does this mean to us? And how do we appropriately push back on it if we think that it's, if it's misthought?
Yeah, it's
It is
an idea.
for most of us. I mean, we need to be good global citizens, so we need to work with Glyph. But in terms of 90% of our transactions or more, it's just not relevant. So
To me, this feels more like a MOSIP issue anyway. Identity. That we're just using that, or you're making a proxy, if you will, for that.
Funny you should say that, Greg. That's where our thinking is probably going. Yes.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I'm listening to this conversation with great interest, because one of the tickets I put on the board was leverage LEI.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for me, like the point of, for me, there's a closest solution to a global addressing solution, right? I appreciate like it's kind of limited. Adoption is very low in some of the geography, like definitely in Africa. When we had the call with them, they were showing us how many LEIs they have registered in Africa, and this was really low. But for me, like having a solution like this would definitely ease the concept of interoperability and being in a position where you can easily identify someone, right? So that's what I put it there.
Yeah. And after all, IBANs work so well, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I think we're coming to the end of this session. I think we've gathered a good few requirements on the board. I suggest that rather than going through them in any detail now, that I gather them together and we have a session within Product Council to prioritize all of these and to see whether we can adopt any into the roadmap overall. If there's anything that anyone wants to highlight as something that we have potentially missed, then now is the time. But I think we have pretty good coverage there, and I'd like to thank everyone for their contributions to that. As I say, I will take this offline, collate them, put some thinking behind them, and then we can present them at Product Council very soon. So on that basis, thank you. Unless there's anything else anyone wants to say, I propose we close this session and I hand it back to Simeon. So thank you, Simeon.